My father used to come to the United States to work. He'd work here for 4 years and go back, and they lived quite well for 5 years in Portugal. Now, that started with my grandfather, and he was going to start doing the same thing. So he went back to get a wife. He married my mother when she was 15. Stayed with her 22 days. I was a result of that. I was born September 8th when she was 16. She was 16 on September the 3rd, and I was born on September the 8th. The only father I knew was my grandfather. I did not know my father at all. This was back in, 42, 43. I knew my grandfather's father, and I knew my grandmother as grandma, or mother. We stayed in Portugal for 5 years. I was 5 years old when my father, he came to the United States, and he worked here for 4 years and went back to pick us up.
You were raised in Portugal then?
For 5 years, I was raised. When my father came to get me, I didn't know who he was. The only thing I'd ever seen of him was pictures. My mother would point to the picture and say, "This is your father from America," which in Portuguese is Pai da América. So that's what I called him, Pai da América. We came to the United States. I ended up coming in at Ellis Island. When I was at Ellis Island, being a Portuguese background, everything was pretty strange to me. We came across on a Pullman train from Ellis Island to Sacramento. They picked us up in Sacramento, took us to Tracy. We got to Tracy at night. The next morning, I was milking cows. At 5 years old, I had to carry the milk. And we milked there for a while until we came up to Delavan here and started working on our own dairy, bought some cows with some money from property we had in Portugal. And I worked on the dairy. That's all I ever knew was work on a dairy. And that was starting in 47, clear to into the 50s. I didn't do much as a teenager. My father did not believe in school. I've said this before. I used to think that F meant fine on my report card. So nobody yelled at me about it. But I went all the way through school doing basically nothing because that's all I did was going home to work. Summer, I worked all summer. There was no vacations. There was no nothing. I did go back to Portugal to see my grandparents once when I was 16 years old, and they tried to get me married off while I was there, but I fortunately didn't. I came back in one piece. And that got me here and the only way I could get away from the dairy was my teacher, coach, he was our class advisor, helped me out. I joined the Army. I was out of school 3 days and I was in the U.S. Army. Went to Korea, so I am a veteran. I did during my teenage years, I had to get my citizenship papers because I wanted to be sure I was not sent back to Portugal because I was always under the fear that they would send me back. I studied the Constitution. I knew everything about the Constitution. Passed it with flying colors. Then when I joined the Army, they told me that if you join the Army, once you've served in the Army, you're an American. They can't send you back. That's the reason for joining the Army. And getting away from the dairy, because there's no way I could get away from the dairy because I had no money, I had no nothing. That's when I started farming on my own. I actually came and started working for a big ranch and started learning about rice. Pretty much it.
Where was the ranch that you learned about rice? Where was that?
I started working for Gunnersfield Ranch. I was a ditch digger. I was only 19. And by the time I was 23, I was foreman. By the time I was 26, I was ranch manager. And I built that ranch mainly, leveled it all, started a lot of the new programs, the square checks, big square checks that they made. I was the first one to start that. A lot of my ideas out there. Did a lot of engineering work out there and what have you. Due to the owner who gave me a chance that mostly people could not get. I knew nothing, but he had the money and he let me go. I mean, if we had a need for some kind of a machine, I told him I could build something to do that. He'd say, build it. And I did, with no blueprints, no nothing. And I've built a lot of machinery for him. Got to be pretty well known for that. I got to be taking care of duck clubs. I've got known in quite a large area because I handled duck clubs. We took care of as much as 7,000 acres of duck clubs all over the place. And that's where I met a lot of influential people, is in the duck clubs. If there was anything that needed to be built, I was the first one to build the double laser that they have. I was the first one to build what they called at the time the one-man band, which was a roller, did 5 operations at one time, putting the fertilizer on and rolled it. And then we started leveling the big square checks into big pads, which everybody does now. I also was quite instrumental in building the Dazig, which was a machine that goes out in the rice fields and sprays with the wheels through the water. I helped Mr. Ziegelmeyer, who was Sweco, kind of design that a little bit. I was involved in that with him. And I got to be pretty well known for working alkali ground. So they nicknamed me Alkali Joe. We grow medium grain mainly in California. Back east, they grow long grain. Some of the foreign countries grow long grain. They grow the type of long grain that has 2 crops. We got the premium area to grow medium grain rice. As long as we stay in medium grain, we're always going to have the top. When we started going into long grain, we cannot grow the long grain that they grow in the east. I'm sorry, there are people who disagree with me, but we can't grow the quality that they do back east. We're a medium grain people. They got basmatis, they got all these other grain, rice types of rices, and we can grow them, yes, to a point, but they're never going to be as good as they are in India, for instance, with basmati or some of those exotic grains. I built quite a bit of Gunnersfield Ranch. I was there, or managed it anyway. And the rice industry started out with just a couple of mills, and it quickly grew into something big. The mills were appointing people to speak for the farmers. The farmers had no say. So the farmers were being pretty well taken advantage of. That's when I jumped into it. At the time, it was called a promotion board. We got rid of the promotion board and now got the commission. The commission is 50% rice farmers, 50% mills. Pretty close anyway. But you do have a little clause in there that you can be a farmer and a miller at the same time, so the millers do still have an advantage. But it's far cry from what it was. And if it wasn't for the commission, we wouldn't have what we have today. When I was farming out of Gunnersfield, I took over the farming and everything, and I wear a cowboy hat. And I sweat an awful lot till I almost rot off my head. So at the end of the year, when the crop came in, I threw my hat through the harvester. And I started that. This year, I threw my 60th hat through the harvester. Been 60 years I planted 60 crops so far. I don't know if I'll make another one or not. I told you I was known as Alkali Joe. The other thing that people, my wife keeps telling me, well, everybody knows who you are because of your pickup. I got a dog that I've been following that dog around for 40-some years. It's a hood ornament, and it's been through 37 pickups already, and I'm still following that dog. So I'm a creature of habit. I started with nothing, and I had to work my way up, and One time when the easement program took all my land away from me for the easement, going to bird habitat, it took me 17 years to come out because I leveled all that land and I had to pay to level the land. And they took it away from me. They condemned it and took it away from me. That's our government.
He didn't have any money. He's just short of $1 million in debt.
Yeah. When I married Maria, I was $1 million in debt. $990,000.
His wife passed
I was in debt and I was paying 18% interest. And I had to come out of that. It took me 17 years. We never went out to dinner, never went to a show, never went anywhere for 17 years. Nobody gave me nothing with these two hands.
He only knew what farmers go through to make a living, working long hours and not being appreciated. And they forget who feeds them. It's the farmer, not Safeway, not Rayleigh's. It's the farmer that feeds America.
I seen where government was taking advantage of a lot of things. I wasn't involved in anything. I just did like everybody else. I griped and bellyached, and I did vote, but that's about it. I seen 3 women. The main 3 was Susan Sutton, Marion Mathis, and Mary Spooner. 3 women trying to do something, put up some signs because they were going to take our water away from us. And here was 3 housewives basically trying to save our water. Women, no men with them, nobody would help them. So I heard about it. And I told them, could I help you girls? Well, they jumped on it. They wanted plywood. So I got them, I don't remember how many sheets. I think I got something like 50 sheets of plywood right off the bat. And I got them about 15 gallons of paint and started painting signs and put up signs. And that's where it started. Got the girls into a couple of meetings. At the time, they didn't listen to women very much. Sad to say. But those women were sharp girls. And got them to where they got to speak in front of some people. And they started to listen. And Family Water Alliance grew from there. Then we got a couple other guys. Lee McCorkle, for one, was one that came in quite early. John Sutton did a lot to help out with it, too. Cliff Liddy was another one that came in and helped. Once we got some men to help out, and there was a mixture of men and women, they took off. And when they seen us win a couple of battles, people joined in. And I'm pretty proud to say I was part of it. I had a blazer, and I put those girls in that blazer, and we'd go down and we'd go look at all the pumping stations. And we started reviewing what was going on, where we pumped out of the river. We got the fish screen program going. I was largely responsible for connecting with the fishermen, but we got the farmers to cooperate with the fishermen. And that helped a lot. It helped the fishermen and it helped us. They're farming the water, we're farming the land. It's the same thing. I mean, when they suffer with a disease in the fish, or warm water, or not getting enough water, no water going down the rivers to spawn the salmon, we all suffer together. They were getting less and less salmon in that river. And if we couldn't get more salmon returning, they tag those fish and they know where they're going, they know where they're hatched, they know where they go. It had pretty well proved that pumps were picking up a lot of those fish. And it's not only that, I personally walked out into where those pumps are, and you see the fish ground up on the other side of the pump. You can't be much plainer than that. We're destroying fish. And we went up, I took people up to Knight's Landing, where they got their pumps over there pumping the traps there to catch the fish, catch the salmon, and they put them back into the river. So what did they do? And they were catching them by the thousands, putting them into trucks. This was horrible. They were putting them into trucks, little fingerlings, barely the size. They'd take them out about 4 or 5 miles, back up to the river, open the valve, and dump the fish back into the river. What was waiting right there at the edge of the river? Squaw fish and striped bass. And they just gobble up those salmon. And the government's doing this, destroying the fish. We got on that and we got that stopped. And that was mainly, I never forget Marion Mathis. She talked down a couple of those guys. They thought that they could blow her over, but Marion Mathis was quick, smart and quick. And she answered every one of them questions and put them down. I'm horribly proud of that woman. We got to work with these people. We've got to both learn to live together. If they're gonna want fish. They're urban people. There's a lot more of them than there are us. So the only thing we got is we got to kind of help them along with it, and they got to see that they're getting better and we're getting better. Otherwise, they just vote us out. They vote everything away from you. Best thing I saw happen in ag is $32 rice, which put us all on top of the table for a while. But right now, it's going the other way. But rice has got that. It's up and down. We got to suffer through it. We're going to see where we're going through this. But one of the best things that happened in the rice industry, and this was the Rice Commission, for one thing. The Rice Commission fights right alongside of Family Water Alliance. I see Family Water Alliance getting together. We started a group called Rice Producers of California too, which fought alongside of Family Water Alliance. And Family Water Alliance has been the inspiration for a lot of people to do a lot of different things. There's things before that they wouldn't even try to do. But now they got people in that they can go to, and they will sit down and listen to them. Before, they just threw you off. Now, they got a voice in Family Water Lines. And the Commission. And Rice Research. And the water districts. We're all kind of melting together. And we're fighting for a livelihood. Everybody wants water, but everybody wants us to give it to them. And we develop it. All these dams were developed by the farmers mainly. And we can't do nothing without water. And until people realize that if the farmer doesn't have water, they don't have food. There are different crops that are grown in this state. We have to have water at all times of the year. We have to have more surface water until people realize that we need more dams and can keep this surface water on top of the ground because it costs too much to lift it out of the ground. It's very expensive. Surface water comes out of dams, rivers, and whatever. It's a very low lift, very cheaply pumped, and we need a lot of it. The worst is yet to come. I think if we don't get some more water and get some more surface water going, we're liable to get into one of these big, heavy droughts. But the drought has been about the worst. When we don't have water, it's the lifeblood of this community, our communities, and not only, but the whole state. And we have to get control of the left. I don't mind listening to the other side of the story, but when they get too far out, it's too far out. Let's face it, California is known as a stupid state. People here are stupid. They use no common sense. Regulation, going way overboard with regulation. To get anything done, the Sites Reservoir could have been paid for years ago if they hadn't done so many tests. They spent more on tests and propaganda and what have you than they have to build a dam. And they still haven't moved a shovel full of dirt. We also got to start looking to recharge our aquifers. Years ago, we had artesian wells all over this valley. You don't have them anymore. Why not? I'll answer my own question. You pump water out of the ground it drops the water table. We've got the water table dropped down now so that they grow walnuts and almonds and a lot of them right now. If we put this Sites Reservoir in and they start damming it all up, that Sites Reservoir, that water is going to start going down into the aquifers. It's going to raise the water table in the Sacramento Valley. Farmers are very good at adapting. They'll find a way of surviving because they have to. They don't have a welfare to fall back on. So we survive.
What's the worst in the government regulation that you've seen?
Mainly over fuel, anything that has to do with fuel, trucking, everything moves by truck. The regulations they put on trucks, I had 6 trucks at one time and quite a few sets of trailers, so I had to get rid of all of it. Can't afford the paperwork anymore. You need a woman full-time working on that. Chemical regulations. Some is good, but they're overdoing it on a lot of chemical regulations. Permits. My God, you got to have a permit to pass gas anymore. Almost. It's ridiculous. I sued the state. Me and 2 other guys, Robert Sutton and Bert Manuel, we sued the state of California. We wanted to have a right to burn at least 50%. We got beat. If we could have at least gotten 50%, but what they did, they promised us that in 3 years we would have a use for rice straw. The farmers tried everything. I even made rice newspaper out of rice straw. We made poles out of rice straw. We made carpeting out of rice straw, tiles out of rice straw, panelings, lumber, everything out of rice straw. But it cost too much to handle it, so we couldn't use it. The burn issue put us to where we had to all of a sudden figure out some other way to do it. So what do? We start working the straw into the ground. When they start working the straw into the ground, now we got chemical problems. And we got an awful lot of labor burning fuel. These tractors burn a lot of fuel, dust in the air. It would have been much cleaner to just burn it. But what they do, they set us up on a program where they only let us burn 25%. And when we do burn, most of the time it's on a day that's terrible to burn. And then when you do get a day to burn, they only let you burn 20 or 30 acres. When they get a day with a big inversion, just say, hey, buddy, burn, baby, burn. Burn it all. Get it over with. 2 or 3 days, it'll have been over. That's the cleanest way. So now we are having to use a multitude of chemicals for spraying the weeds, for killing bugs, for killing everything. I know my own wife here is having a problem with her eyesight because of the dust and stuff in the air. Well, when we have to chop that rice straw, you can't see for miles sometimes with the dust. But what are you going to do? It's mandated. That's all we can do. They're getting too far away from the farm. You shouldn't be able to be a politician unless you had to farm for a while. It's just like you shouldn't be a politician unless you served in the army. So you know what it is to be free. Freedom is not free.